The grand hall was filled with the hum of voices as representatives from all across the galaxy gathered. It was the most anticipated event of the year, an intergalactic council where species from distant planets came together to discuss progress, politics, and new alliances. There was a sense of importance in the air, a feeling that this meeting could shape the future of the galaxy. At the front of the room stood a young human ambassador, David Carter, who was there to represent Earth for the very first time. His hands were slightly sweaty as he adjusted his tie and looked over his notes. Earth had made great strides in space exploration, but it was still a newcomer in galactic politics. The other representatives, members of advanced alien civilizations, watched him with amusement. "Do we really need to waste time on these Earthlings?" murmured a tall, thin alien from a race known as the Stonari. "They're not even 100 years old, and they think they're ready for this." The room filled with quiet laughter, and David couldn't help but feel the weight of their judgment. It wasn't the first time he had encountered this reaction. Humanity was still considered young, untested, and often underestimated by the older civilizations. They were still learning, still growing, and many believed they had nothing to offer. David stood at the podium, trying to keep his nerves in check. His speech was ready, but he knew that no matter what he said, the other alien races wouldn't take it seriously. He glanced at his fellow human delegates, all of them nervous but hopeful. They were here to prove something. They were here to show the galaxy that humanity was more than just a fledgling species. "Esteemed members of the council," David began, his voice steady despite the mockery in the room. "We are here to offer our cooperation. We may be new to the galactic stage, but our potential is limitless. We are eager to learn, to grow, and to contribute to the peace and prosperity of this galaxy." His words were met with polite applause, but David could see the eyes of the other representatives glinting with skepticism. They didn't believe him. They didn't believe in humanity. Not yet. An alien woman from the Zoltarian race, with smooth silver skin and wide, inquisitive eyes, leaned forward in her seat. She whispered to the delegate sitting beside her, "I've heard rumors. They've barely made it past their own solar system, and they think they can handle galactic politics." David caught the exchange, and although it stung, he didn't let it show. He knew the truth. Humanity was much more advanced than they appeared, but they had kept their secrets for good reason. Revealing too much too soon could make them targets. "Thank you for your time," David finished, his voice carrying a quiet but firm tone. "We look forward to the opportunity to prove ourselves." The meeting continued, and as the humans took their seats, there was a strange feeling in the air, one that they couldn't quite place yet. It was as if the laughter and mockery had planted a seed. Something in the air told David that they were not done. He didn't know when, but soon they would get the chance to show the galaxy just what humanity was capable of. The council meeting had ended, but the whispers about humanity's young civilization still lingered in the air. David Carter, still feeling the sting of the mocking remarks, returned to the human delegation room. His thoughts were clouded with frustration. The other alien species had made their feelings clear. They didn't take humanity seriously. But David wasn't giving up. He couldn't. He knew that Earth had something special, something that could change the way the galaxy saw them. They just needed the right opportunity to prove it. Later that day, the human delegation received a message from the council, a new mission. The alien colony on the planet Zoreth was in distress. They needed assistance, and the humans were selected to help. It seemed like an easy job. Zoreth was a small, peaceful colony, and the request for help didn't sound too urgent. Other alien species had already declined to assist, thinking the problem wasn't worth their time. David looked at the mission details. He could feel his heart racing. This was the chance he had been waiting for. The humans might be young, but they were strong. They had technology that no one knew about, and they had a resolve that could not be matched. "This is our chance," David said, turning to the other humans in the room. "We can't let this opportunity slip away. We'll show them what we can do." The humans quickly assembled a team of scientists, engineers, and soldiers. They would leave within the week. The rest of the galaxy didn't believe in them, but David knew that they would soon have to. The ship they would travel on, the Odyssey, was one of humanity's finest. It was equipped with technology far beyond what any of the other alien races had seen. But they kept that a secret for now. The mission would be a test, one they had to pass. As they prepared, David couldn't help but notice the looks from the other species. The Zorath colony's distress was a small matter, but for the humans, it was a statement. The alien delegates who had mocked humanity now looked at them with a mix of curiosity and doubt. Some even whispered among themselves. "The humans," one of them muttered. "They're naive. They'll fail." David overheard the words, but he chose not to respond. There would be no need. The truth would come soon enough. The Odyssey launched with a team of 5 human specialists on board. The journey was long, but David and his crew stayed focused. They discussed the mission, prepared their strategies, and kept to themselves. The humans were determined to show that their young civilization had far more to offer than anyone could imagine. When they finally arrived on Zorath, they found a colony struggling with mechanical failures. A series of malfunctions had left the colony without power, and the residents were unable to fix the problem. It seemed like an easy task for a highly advanced species, so why had the other alien races declined? As the humans surveyed the scene, David's mind raced. They were here to help, but what if the problem was more than just mechanical? The air was thick with tension, and David couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more going on. As his team got to work, David couldn't help but think, this is it. This is where they'll see the truth about. The Odyssey glided smoothly through space, heading toward the planet Zorath. The stars around them flickered in the vastness of space, and the crew inside the ship remained focused on their mission. David Carter stood by the window of the ship's command room, his gaze fixed on the distant stars. He could feel the weight of the mission ahead, but he also felt something else: determination. This was more than just a rescue mission. It was humanity's chance to prove they belonged among the stars. David had seen how the alien races laughed at them during the council meeting, and he knew they would expect the humans to fail. But he was determined to change their minds. As the ship sailed through the silence of space, the crew worked together, preparing for the task at hand. Engineers ran diagnostics on the ship's equipment, scientists studied the data sent from Zorath, and soldiers made sure their gear was ready for any unexpected problems. There was a sense of purpose in the air, a quiet confidence that humanity's time had come. "Everything's ready, David," said Sarah, the ship's lead engineer. She was a calm, thoughtful person who rarely showed anxiety. "We'll be on Zorath in a few hours." David nodded, his mind already on what lay ahead. The Zorath colony was known for its peaceful nature, and there was no sign of any major threats. The malfunction they were called to fix seemed simple enough, but there was something about it that didn't sit right with him. "Is there any reason why no one else came to help them?" David asked, turning to Sarah. She shook her head. "No, it's strange. The Zorath colony has always been self-sufficient. The other races didn't see it as a problem worth their time. But we're different, right?" David smiled at her words. "Exactly. We're not here just to fix machines. We're here to show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." As they approached Zorath, the planet's surface came into view. It was a small world, with lush green landscapes and peaceful settlements. But something about it felt off. The usual vibrant energy of the colony was missing. The entire place looked quiet, almost abandoned. David frowned. "I don't like this," he muttered under his breath. When they landed, the humans were met by a Zorathian representative, a tall being with smooth, silver-blue skin. The Zorathian's face was tight with worry. "We're grateful for your help," the representative said, his voice strained. "But I'm afraid things are worse than we thought." David exchanged a quick look with his team. The malfunction was no longer just a technical issue. There was something bigger happening here, something they hadn't expected. "We'll handle it," David said firmly, trying to mask the unease building inside him. "Let's get to work." The crew stepped off the ship, their boots touching the ground of Zoreth. The peaceful world was still, the air heavy with an unfamiliar tension. The Zorethian led them to the colony's central hub, where the power issues had started. As the team got to work, David noticed the quiet eyes watching them. The Zorethians, though peaceful, seemed nervous, their gaze often shifting to the horizon. It was clear they were hiding something, but David wasn't sure what. He wasn't about to let their worries distract him. His team was here to fix the problem, and that's exactly what they were going to do. But David knew this mission was far from simple. There was more at play here than anyone could have predicted. The Odyssey crew worked tirelessly, fixing the malfunctioning systems in the colony's central hub. Engineers and scientists worked together, carefully examining the power grid and machinery. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, too smoothly, in fact. The problem appeared to be a simple failure in the main power conduits, but as they dug deeper, things started to feel off. David stood at the back of the room, observing his crew. The Zorethian representative had stepped away, leaving them to work. The silence of the colony was unsettling, and David couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. "David," Sarah called, breaking his thoughts. "You need to see this." He hurried over to her. Sarah was staring at a holographic display showing the colony's power grid. There were several signs of power surges coming from a hidden source, but nothing explained where they were coming from. "There's a power drain in the system," Sarah explained. "But the source isn't on the grid. It's coming from underground." David's brow furrowed. Underground. This wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was deliberate. Someone, or something, was causing these disruptions. But who? "I'll go check it out," David said, trying to remain calm. He turned to his team. "Keep working on the systems here. I'll investigate the source." A few minutes later, David and a couple of soldiers were standing outside the central hub, ready to head toward the underground power station. The air felt thick, and a low hum echoed from deep within the ground. It was unsettling, but David had dealt with difficult situations before. He couldn't let fear take over. As they descended into the dark, narrow tunnels beneath the colony, the atmosphere grew colder. The further they went, the more they could hear the strange hum of electricity, like something was alive down here. The soldiers kept close, their weapons ready in case of any surprise threats. They finally reached a large open chamber where the power lines converged. The lights flickered as they entered, casting long shadows across the walls. And then David saw it, a massive machine, ancient and covered in strange markings. It was unlike anything they had on Earth. The hum was louder here, almost deafening. Before David could step forward, a loud noise echoed through the room. A group of Zorethian soldiers appeared from the shadows, their faces hard and serious. "You shouldn't be here," one of them said, his voice cold. David's heart raced. What were the Zorethians hiding? He had suspected something was wrong, but this was worse than he imagined. The soldiers raised their weapons, and for a moment, David feared they were going to attack. But before anything could happen, a voice rang out from the back of the chamber. "Stop. Let them speak." A figure stepped out from the shadows, an older Zorethian with sharp features and an air of authority. This was the colony's leader. David looked at the Zorethian leader, confusion in his eyes. "What's going on here? What is this machine?" The leader sighed, his eyes filled with regret. "This machine. It's not just a power source. It's something far older. We didn't want anyone to know about it, not even the humans." David felt a chill run down his spine. The situation was more complicated than he had ever imagined. The Zorethians weren't just facing a simple power outage. They were hiding something dangerous, something that could threaten them all. "We need to fix this," David said, his voice steady. Now, the Zorethian leader, his face marked with worry, stepped closer to David. The room was thick with tension as the Zorathian soldiers lowered their weapons, but their eyes stayed locked on the humans. David's mind raced. The machine they had found underground wasn't just a power source. It was something far more dangerous. "We have to destroy it," David said, his voice firm. The Zorathian leader shook his head slowly, a heavy sadness in his eyes. "You don't understand," he said. "This machine, it's part of our history. We didn't want anyone to know about it, not even the humans." David was confused. What could possibly be so important about a machine that the Zorathians had hidden underground? "Then explain it to me," David said, crossing his arms. "What is this machine?" The Zorathian leader took a deep breath and turned toward the machine, the hum still vibrating through the chamber. "This machine was created long before we even found Zorath. It's ancient, older than our civilization itself. It was left here by a species that no longer exists. We didn't know its true purpose until recently." David stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the machine. The strange markings on its surface pulsed with a faint light, and he could feel the energy coming from it. It wasn't just a machine. It was something much more powerful. "It's a weapon," the Zorathian leader continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "And it's been dormant for centuries. We thought it was harmless, but something has triggered it. Now, it's starting to activate, and we can't stop it." David felt his heart race. A weapon. They had no idea what they were dealing with. And now it was waking up. "What happens if we don't stop it?" David asked, his voice tense. The Zorathian leader looked at him with a mix of fear and regret. "It could destroy everything. The entire planet. It's a self-replicating weapon, and once it's activated, it will continue to build itself, stronger and stronger. It will eventually consume everything in its path." David's mind raced. This wasn't just a technical malfunction. It was a ticking time bomb. He turned to his crew, who had followed him into the chamber. They were looking at him, waiting for orders. "We have to destroy it," David said firmly. "Now." But the Zorathian leader stepped forward, his hands raised in protest. "We can't just destroy it. It's part of our history. It holds the key to everything we've learned about our past. We've been studying it for years, trying to understand its true purpose." David shook his head. "I don't care about history right now. We have to save this planet." The Zorathian leader hesitated for a moment, but then he nodded, his face filled with defeat. "You're right. We've kept this secret for too long. But now it's out of our control. Please, you have to stop it." David took a deep breath and looked at his team. They had no choice. The only way to protect the Zorathians, and the rest of the galaxy, was to destroy the machine before it could do any more damage. "We'll figure it out," David said, determination in his eyes. "We'll stop it, together." The room was silent, filled with tension as the Zorathian leader stood before David, the weight of the situation sinking in. The machine had to be destroyed, but it wasn't going to be easy. The ancient weapon wasn't just a simple device. It was powerful and far more dangerous than anything humanity had ever encountered. David could feel the eyes of the Zorathian soldiers on him, their trust hanging in the balance. "We'll need to get into the control room to disable the machine's power core," Sarah, the ship's lead engineer, said, looking over the designs of the machine displayed on her tablet. "But we have no idea what kind of defense systems it might have." David nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. The Zorathians had been hiding this weapon for centuries, and now it had been triggered. It was up to them to stop it before it consumed the planet. "We'll have to be quick," David said, turning to his team. "No mistakes. We don't have time to waste." As the team made their way toward the heart of the machine, David couldn't help but notice the reactions of the Zorathian soldiers. They had watched their leaders try to protect the machine for so long, but now that it was clear it was a threat, their fear and uncertainty were palpable. They had trusted their leader's judgment, but now they were realizing the true cost of that trust. "Is it really that dangerous? one of the Zorathian soldiers asked, his voice trembling slightly. David glanced at him, his expression serious. "It's more dangerous than you can imagine, and we're running out of time." The group moved quickly, navigating through dark tunnels and corridors toward the machine's core. The hum of the machine grew louder with every step, and the walls seemed to pulse with energy. It was clear that they were getting closer to the source of the power. As they entered the main control room, Sarah immediately went to work. She pulled up the system's interface on a large screen, trying to pinpoint where the power core was located. The room was filled with the sound of rapid typing and the occasional beep of the systems. It wasn't easy to decipher, but Sarah's expertise made all the difference. "This is it," Sarah said after a few moments, her voice calm but urgent. "The core is shielded, but if we can bypass the security systems, we can shut it down." David moved to her side, glancing at the display. He could see the faint outline of the core, glowing with dangerous energy. They had to act fast. "Can you override it?" David asked. "I'll try," Sarah replied, her fingers flying across the console. As Sarah worked, David looked around the control room, his mind alert. He knew that any minute now, the machine could start replicating itself. If they didn't stop it, Zorath could be gone in a matter of hours. Behind them, the Zorathian leader stood with his arms crossed, a look of regret on his face. "We never meant for this to happen. We thought it was a relic of the past, something harmless. We were wrong." David didn't have time for sympathy. He could feel the pressure building as Sarah continued to work. The hum of the machine was now deafening, and it was clear that time was running out. "We're close," Sarah said, her voice tight with concentration. "Just a few more seconds." David's pulse raced as the countdown to the machine's full activation seemed to be coming to a head. The room was silent, filled with tension as the Zorathian leader stood before David, the weight of the situation sinking in. The machine had to be destroyed, but it wasn't going to be easy. The ancient weapon wasn't just a simple device. It was powerful and far more dangerous than anything humanity had ever encountered. David could feel the eyes of the Zorathian soldiers on him, their trust hanging in the balance. "We'll need to get into the control room to disable the machine's power core," Sarah, the ship's lead engineer, said, looking over the designs of the machine displayed on her tablet. "But we have no idea what kind of defense systems it might have." David nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. The Zorathians had been hiding this weapon for centuries, and now it had been triggered. It was up to them to stop it before it consumed the planet. "We'll have to be quick," David said, turning to his team. "No mistakes. We don't have time to waste." As the team made their way toward the heart of the machine, David couldn't help but notice the reactions of the Zorathian soldiers. They had watched their leaders try to protect the machine for so long, but now that it was clear it was a threat, their fear and uncertainty were palpable. They had trusted their leader's judgment, but now they were realizing the true cost of that trust. "Is it really that dangerous?" one of the Zorathian soldiers asked, his voice trembling slightly. David glanced at him, his expression serious. "It's more dangerous than you can imagine, and we're running out of time." The group moved quickly, navigating through dark tunnels and corridors toward the machine's core. The hum of the machine grew louder with every step, and the walls seemed to pulse with energy. It was clear that they were getting closer to the source of the power. As they entered the main control room, Sarah immediately went to work. She pulled up the system's interface on a large screen, trying to pinpoint where the power core was located. The room was filled with the sound of rapid typing and the occasional beep of the systems. It wasn't easy to decipher, but Sarah's expertise made all the difference. "This is it," Sarah said after a few moments, her voice calm but urgent. "The core is shielded, but if we can bypass the security systems, we can shut it down." David moved to her side, glancing at the display. He could see the faint outline of the core, glowing with dangerous energy. They had to act fast. "Can you override it?" David asked. "I'll try," Sarah replied, her fingers flying across the console. As Sarah worked, David looked around the control room, his mind alert. He knew that any minute now, the machine could start replicating itself. If they didn't stop it, Zoreth could be gone in a matter of hours. Behind them, the Zorethian leader stood with his arms crossed, a look of regret on his face. "We never meant for this to happen. We thought it was a relic of the past, something harmless. We were wrong." David didn't have time for sympathy. He could feel the pressure building as Sarah continued to work. The hum of the machine was now deafening, and it was clear that time was running out. "We're close," Sarah said, her voice tight with concentration. "Just a few more seconds." David's pulse raced as the countdown to the machine's full activation seemed to be coming to a head. The tension in the control room was unbearable. Sarah's fingers moved quickly across the console, her face pale with concentration. Every second that passed seemed like an eternity as the hum of the machine grew louder. The Zorethian leader stood near the back of the room, wringing his hands nervously. David could feel the weight of the moment. Every choice they made from here on out would decide the fate of the entire planet. "We're almost there," Sarah said, her voice strained. "Just a few more lines of code to override." David looked around at his team. They had fought hard to get this far, and now they were on the brink of stopping a galactic catastrophe. But the pressure was immense. If they didn't shut the machine down in time, it would be too late. "Keep going," David urged. "We don't have much time." The Zorethian leader stepped forward, his face etched with regret. "I never wanted this. We kept this secret for too long, thinking we could control it. But now we see the truth." David glanced at the leader, feeling a mix of frustration and sympathy. The Zorethians had made a grave mistake by hiding the machine, but they had no choice now but to work with humanity to save their planet. The machine's hum intensified, sending vibrations through the walls of the control room. It felt like the very air around them was charged with energy, growing more dangerous by the second. "We're ready," Sarah said suddenly, her voice sharp with relief. "I've bypassed the security protocols. We can shut it down now." David nodded quickly, turning to the leader. "Tell your people to get back. We're going to destroy it." The Zorethian leader hesitated for a moment, clearly torn. "But this machine, it holds so much knowledge. We've studied it for generations. If we destroy it, we lose everything we've learned." David understood the weight of the decision, but there was no choice. The machine had to be destroyed, or it would tear apart their world. "If you want to survive, we have to act now. This machine is a threat to everyone. We can rebuild, but only if we stop it." The Zorethian leader nodded slowly, his eyes filled with sadness. "You're right. We've made mistakes, but now we must stand together." David turned back to Sarah, who was already preparing the final command to deactivate the machine. The room fell into silence as they waited. The hum of the machine had reached a deafening pitch, and David could feel the electricity in the air. "On my count," Sarah said, her voice tight. 5, 4, 3. David held his breath. They had no idea what would happen when the machine was deactivated. Would it explode? Would it just stop? 2, 1. With a final, sharp beep, Sarah hit the command. The machine's hum suddenly stopped. The room was eerily quiet, and the air felt lighter, less oppressive. David exhaled in relief, but he wasn't ready to celebrate just yet. They had won this battle, but the war wasn't over. The galaxy now knew what humanity was capable of. They had stood against a threat far greater than anyone had expected, and they had emerged victorious. As the Zorethian leader stepped forward, his face softened. "You did it. You saved us. We are in your debt." David gave a small smile, but he didn't feel the need to gloat. This was just the beginning. Humanity had proven itself in a way that no one would forget. "We did it together," David said. "And this is only the start." The galaxy will see that humanity is a force to be reckoned with. The mission to save Zorath was over, but the consequences of their actions were just beginning to unfold. As the Odyssey crew boarded their ship to leave the planet, David Carter looked out at the Zorathian colony from the ship's observation deck. The sun was setting over the green fields, casting long shadows across the land. For the first time, in what seemed like forever, Zorath was at peace. David couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They had done it. The ancient machine that threatened to destroy the planet was gone, and the Zorathians were safe. But more than that, humanity had shown the galaxy something it would never forget. They had proved that, despite being a young civilization, they could face any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. Back on the Zorathian surface, the colony's leader stood with David and the rest of the human crew. The leader's face was no longer filled with fear, but with gratitude. "We didn't believe in you at first," the Zorathian leader admitted, his voice humble. "We thought you were too young, too inexperienced to handle this kind of threat. But you have shown us that Earth is far more than we ever imagined. For that, we are forever in your debt." David nodded. "We didn't do it for the thanks. We did it because we had to, and because we believe in what humanity can achieve." The leader smiled, clearly moved by David's words. "You've earned our respect, and we will work together to make sure this never happens again." As the Odyssey prepared to leave Zorath's atmosphere, David turned to his crew. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, but they had come out victorious. Their mission had turned from a simple task into something far greater. They had not only saved a planet, but had also sent a powerful message to the galaxy. Humanity was ready to stand with the most powerful civilizations in the universe. On board the ship, Sarah sat in the engineering bay, working on the ship's systems. She had always been calm under pressure, but even she couldn't hide the excitement in her voice as she spoke to David over the comms. "David, the news is already spreading," Sarah said. "The other alien species are talking about what happened. We've got the attention of the entire galaxy." David smiled, his heart swelling with a sense of pride and excitement. "It's just the beginning, Sarah. We've shown them that humanity is capable of more than they think. Now, the real work starts." The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just a young species anymore. They had proven that their ingenuity, resilience, and determination could overcome even the greatest of challenges. Now, the galaxy would have to reckon with Earth's potential. As they traveled back through space, David looked out at the stars, knowing that this was just the first step in a much larger journey. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of, and soon they would be allies and partners, no longer outsiders, but respected equals. And for the first time, David truly believed that humanity's place in the galaxy was secure. The future was full of possibilities, and Earth was ready to take its place at the table with the rest of the universe. As the Odyssey drifted through the vastness of space, the message of humanity's victory on Zorath spread like wildfire. The galaxy, which had once mocked humanity's young civilization, was now filled with whispers of their bravery and strength. But as much as David and his crew celebrated their success, they knew the peace wouldn't last forever. David sat at the command center of the Odyssey, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. The Zorath mission had been a success, but the galaxy was far from a peaceful place. There were still old enemies, lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike. His thoughts were interrupted by Sarah's voice over the comms. "David, we've received a new message. It's from the Galactic Council." David straightened in his seat. The Galactic Council was the most powerful governing body in the galaxy. They controlled trade, alliances, and military forces. If they were reaching out to humanity now, it was a sign that things were changing. "Put it through," David said. A moment later, a hologram of a tall, imposing figure appeared on the screen. It was the leader of the Galactic Council, a being named Praxel. His species, the Varnak, had been one of the most influential in the galaxy for centuries. "Human Ambassador David Carter, Praxel said, his voice deep and commanding. You and your people have proven yourselves in ways we never thought possible. The events on Zorith have caught the attention of every species in the galaxy. David stood, feeling the weight of the moment. What does this mean for humanity, Praxel? The Varnuk leader's expression softened slightly. It means the galaxy will never see Earth the same way again. You have shown us that humanity's potential is not to be underestimated. But there is more to come. A great threat is rising, one that no one expected, and it is coming for us all. David's heart skipped a beat. A new threat. The galaxy had already faced dangers. Was there something worse out there? What kind of threat? David asked, his voice steady. Praxel looked grim. An ancient enemy, one that has been dormant for eons. The Zorith machine was only a small glimpse of their power. This enemy is far more dangerous, and they are preparing for war. David clenched his fists. He had just helped save a planet, and now it seemed like an even bigger battle loomed ahead. What do you need from us? The Varnuk leader's eyes narrowed. We need every ally we can get. The humans will play a crucial role in the coming conflict. Your ingenuity, your resilience, it will be the key to defeating this enemy. David looked at his crew, who had gathered around him. They had just finished one mission, but now it was clear they were about to face a war on a much larger scale. But David wasn't afraid. He knew humanity was capable of rising to any challenge. The galaxy had seen it on Zorith, and they would see it again. We're ready, David said, his voice filled with determination. We'll fight with you, Praxel. Together, we'll stop this enemy before they destroy everything. The hologram of Praxel nodded. Then prepare yourselves, human ambassador. The battle for the galaxy is about to begin. As the transmission ended, David turned to his crew. They were no longer just a group of explorers. They were soldiers, leaders, and protectors. They were humanity's first line of defense against the unknown. David knew that this battle would define them. It wouldn't be easy, but he was sure of one thing. Humanity would rise to the challenge, and the galaxy would remember their name.